Bonjour à tous.
Bonjour.
We're extremely proud with Aziz to be with you today. Aziz and I, we very long time partners. I think we first met like 30 years ago, which counts a little bit. And at this time, I was in Proparco, and Aziz was a pioneer. He was founding with Ziad Africa Invest, which was really the first big private equity fund in Africa. You could have done a lot of other things, so why did you decide to do something as crazy as that?
Yeah, thank you, Luc. I mean, we have started in '94. I'm an engineer by background. I was working in the Lombardia region for a while and working in small factories, Italian factories, and trying to empower them. And I think that this has helped me in, being inoculated with the entrepreneurship type of spirit. And we have seen when the company in which I was working has been privatized, I decided to set up a firm which keep, this entrepreneurship spirit and try really to disseminate, this spirit, first of all, in the country in which it has started. It was Tunisia at that time, then in North Africa, and then in the whole African continent. And after 30 years, it's not 35 like some of the distinguished guests have mentioned, we have been able to deploy money in 35 countries out of 54 in Africa, plus France and some European countries in which we have started thanks to BPI in 2016, so 8 years ago, and thanks to the involvement of Nicolas, who was here with us in 2016. And we are running, 6 strategies in Africa, targeting mid-large cap, targeting small cap, targeting FI, targeting venture, and targeting also the health sector through a health inclusion vehicle. And more precisely for East Africa and Kenya, we have started 16 years ago. And looking at the results after 16 years, I can report some of what we have been doing here out of Kenya, but also trying to disseminate in the region, because one of the main characteristics of the region is that it's fully integrated. I cannot say the same with North Africa nor many other regions in Africa, unfortunately. So in East African region, we have deployed over 400 million euros. I'm using euros on purpose, 400 million euros in 35 companies. And we have been able, to generate decent return. And I will come back to this point, because we cannot compare the return which we can generate in Africa to the ones, I'm talking about the financial returns, because I'll come back to impact. It has been mentioned by some of the speakers. So on the exits which we have generated, we have been able to give back 2.8 times money. And on the ongoing portfolio, the multiple is lower. It's around 1.3, which makes the whole multiple at 1.6. But we still have time to create value on these companies. So it's decent multiple. If we combine that, with the macro challenges to which we are confronted in the continent. But at the same time, and this will be interesting for Mr. Minister, we have doubled the tax collection through the portfolio companies. We have more than doubled the tax collection here in East Africa. And we have had also, for those who are interested in gender, in most of the companies in which we invested, of course, women were employed, 34% of the companies, 34% of the workforce in these companies were women. Today we are at 47%. And we try to monitor very precisely, these KPIs. EBITDA margin has been multiplied by 3.4 in the whole portfolio company. And we need to mention also to Nicolas and to all the audience, that the holding period, in Africa cannot be 3-4 years. It's certainly 6 to 7 years, because we need time to create value in our environment, and it's not easy. But 3.4 times EBITDA multiple growth, is something which is commendable, and it's based on a growth of the turnover of 2 times, through the holding period, which is something which we consider as being decent. So this is what we have been able to do, in the region, and I think, and I turn back the question to you, I think that the market could not be created if dynamic and credible players like Ametis was doing, and you have brought an angle which was remarkable, because you were the very first one, Luc, to bring private investors to the African continent at scale. So maybe the audience is interested in hearing about your story.
Merci Aziz, thank you very much. Yes, and it's a day of entrepreneurs, so you were an entrepreneur, and I became inspired by people like you, also an entrepreneur. Before creating Ametis, I was the CEO of Proparco, which is the French DFI, dedicated private sector. And something not very well known, because somebody mentioned Union this morning, but Proparco is one of the few DFIs who has nearly no, except the initial equity, money from the French taxpayer. It's a really sustainable financial model. And I said to myself, why not try like a Canada Dry? Why not try to do it on the pure private base? I was 47. This was 12 years ago, and like you, I did that. We did that 2 people with my deputy at this time, Laurent, and begin that in 2012. Now, 12 years down the line, we deployed 1.7 billion euro in Africa. As Aziz mentioned, I think the main difference was that it was mostly private money. It's about 60%, 70% private money, and mostly European. Entrepreneurship is something very cultural. If you look at the private equity landscape, some of the funds are raising money mostly in the US, Ilios, for example, and some of us are raising mostly in Europe. So we're really a bridge between European entrepreneurs. So the core of my investors are European entrepreneurs and African entrepreneurs. That's the first thing we brought on the table. We have 6 offices. Our biggest one is in Kenya, is in Nairobi. Frank is here with us today. Hi, Frank. And maybe to share with you what we do, I would like to give an example. A positive one and a negative one. It happens in my life that one of my best deal in my life has been here, and the worst in my life has been here. So I really like the question of Nicolas this morning, saying to James, okay, but Thales also. There was one moment where really you were sweating, and the moment when I was sweating was here, and I came to ask your help, if you remember. So let's begin by the positive one, because if not, Isabelle is going to blame me, saying that I'm a purely negative French. In French we don't say good thing, we say not too bad. This is the best we can do. So let's begin by the positive one. So the positive one that you all know, because this is where you go to buy food in the weekend, is Naivas. Naivas, for the French who doesn't know, is the biggest retailer in this country. And that's a typical story. Because what we do, 80% of the company we invest in are family-owned. And it's very often exactly like Africa Invest, the first time they open their door to a foreigner. You're a family, very successful, and you decide to put at your board, in your house, a financial company. Usually you do that either to progress in terms of governance, to resolve family issue, or you do that also to, we are, how do you say that in English, like relay courses, to give the baton to the next one who will come, who will be a strategic, usually, but you need to create trust in the ecosystem. And a PE fund is a very good way to create trust. So the Mukwa family came to us and said, okay, would you like to invest in Naivas, which we did as a minority shareholder. Frank did with them a lot of incredible things, from IT to, we did a lot of progress. To give you a few numbers, we arrived, there was 48 shops. There is 102 shops today. We arrived, there was 5,000 employees. There is 11,000 employees today. This was not long time ago, like 4 years ago. there was, well, we had luck. All the Kenyan knows there was a restructuring in the sector. Let's not be too. But we went from 3 million buyers per month to 7 million. You have seen that we wanted, Nicolas, to have you visit some of them today, because you will see it's better than the best supermarket in Paris. So super impressive. We came from 18 tons to 27, etc. And the nice story of Naivas is that the end is why all this meeting is entrepreneur meeting entrepreneur and creating an ecosystem. And the buyer, which is in this room also today, IBL, was from the Indian Ocean. Indian Ocean is a reality. It's IBL, the largest group of Mauritius. And he married with the Mukwa family now. They're really married for a very, very long time. He got 51% at the end of the shareholding. And he's bringing as a strategic partners a lot of trust, etc. And we did a decent 31% of returns as Amethyst, which was not 40%, James, but 31. It's still okay. So this is exactly our life, Aziz and I, in the day-to-day. So that's a nice one. So very shortly, briefly, the worst one of my life. When you come to see Nicolas Dufourcq and say, oh, ISBP could invest in Amethyst. Well, he's an African convinced, and Isabelle also, so that's not... You say, okay, but what about the risk? I say, oh, the risk, forget it. I invested in my former life in one, which was true, I never lie. 100 banks in Africa, I never got, in my former life, 1 cent of NPL, or non-performing loans. First deal of Amethyst, first deal of my company in Kenya, in the bank, write-off. So total panic. So when you're in total panic, you come to see friends. So I came to see James. I say, well, what should I do? So came to see also INM, another bank in the country. Well, it was a very difficult case to fix, so we didn't fix it. Well, it was a small amount of the first fund, so we survived. And then, it was in 2016, we were in a meeting together with Ziad and Aziz, and I told them, wow, friends, I mean, the private equity in Africa, it's tough. Huh? And I asked them, what's the percentage of your deals where you have difficulty, problem? And they look at me and told me, you serious? I say, yeah, yes, what percentage? And they'll often say, 100%. Welcome. To you.
Yeah, it's exactly that. And I mean, life is never easy, but we all know that. But this is what makes the beauty of our life. And I think that what we all share here in this room is that we are investors for purpose. So it's true that at the end of the day, it's a financial activity. We are running for return, and we need also to make our investors happy. But I mean, the impact is very important. And one KPI which I would like to highlight is employment. Employment is the key factor which drives us every day, because dignity is, of course, linked to employment. And I had some discussion, a side discussion this morning, I mean, with someone who will be in the stage, so I let him tell his story. But investing in the agri sector is something which is unbelievable here, and Victoria's story is also on that field, because I mean, the numbers can go very high. You can fix people in their county, and you can give employments, and you can give dignity to people. And thanks to that, I mean, I'm happy to report that we have created, in these 16 years, in this region, over 30,000 direct jobs, 30,000 direct jobs, and over 130,000 indirect jobs linked to what we have created. So I think that this is very important. And every day, and when it comes, I mean, that we restructure companies and that we have to reduce the number of people for a short while, it's a pain. But sometimes, I mean, it's a duty. We need to do it in a very responsible way in order to make our companies viable, because sustainability comes only when these companies are extremely viable. And here, I mean, just to share my experience in this place, I mean, some sectors have been mentioned, but there are, I mean, a lot of sectors which can be viable out of this region. So agribusiness has been mentioned. It can be very strong, and the roses example, I mean, is a good one, and it can be duplicated for many crops. But of course, I mean, the financial sector and fintech. Fintech, I mean, we have invested into a company which has its footprint here. It's called Move, and Move is providing financing to Uber driver. And after 3 years, we were happy to report that Uber has invested with us, and Uber is taking Move, is taking this company now in the UK, it's taking the company in the US, it's taking the company in Bangladesh, and in many Asian countries. So this means that out of a technology which has been developed in Africa, it's possible to conquer the world. And I think that technology is very strong. And I repeatedly say to my colleagues, some of them are in this room, I've seen George and my other colleagues, Kenya is the mecca I'm not kidding, of technology. I compare it to Cape Town, so we have 3 or 4 countries, so Cape Town, Lagos, Cairo, to some extent, some chauvinism. I can mention Tunisia as well, Rwanda is coming, but I think that Kenya has been at the, top front of what is considered today as something, as a commodity. I mean, mobile banking, it has started here, and it can continue. And I was looking for the reason why this has happened. There are many advantages, in Kenya and in East Africa in general. First of all, Kenya is one of the rare countries in which when I come to the airport, the custom officer tells me, "You are welcome, sir." With a Tunisian passport, you can understand that it's not easy to have this type of welcome in many countries. But in Kenya, it's the case. So we are welcome here. And in many successful businesses, there are a good chemistry between foreigners and Kenyan. And you have a very good and strong workforce, which is bringing the country to the next level. So to a large extent, I believe that Kenya can take the lead, in Africa, and can really make that the 2050 horizon, which has been mentioned this morning with 2.5 billion African, and with the workforce going as a primo demandeur d'emploi, so first time people looking for job, 20 million today and 40 million in some times, they will be looking for opportunities here in Africa. I'm convinced that this will happen.
You're fully right, and don't get me wrong, I gave you the example, the negative one. We invested in many other countries in Kenya, and they were all successful, so don't... No, but maybe on that point, I think the lesson learned from the failure, and this is, Mr. Minister, for you, it was maybe mostly a governance issue, and one of the good things about Kenya, I think, is that when you invest here, you have a global state of the law, it's a relatively well predictable country. So all the things you do, and our colleagues this morning say that also, to continue to enforce that is super important for investors. But this is a very attractive country. It's a super attractive country. The second thing is that, and I would like to commend BPI and Nicolas Dufour, because when they created BPI in my country a few years ago, I was saying, "Oh, this is an elephant," and he made an elephant moving at the speed of a mouse. I don't know, he did that, and the core thing of that was creating bridges between entrepreneurs. And what I like in the Naivas example is that we do at our humble level exactly what BPI does, helping entrepreneurs to meet entrepreneurs to create value together. In IBL, we knew him, and it's also a cultural thing. We bring in a French ecosystem. IBL is Mauritius, they're bilingual, but it's from French origin group. It might be easier for French to invest in Kenya than in Ivory Coast. You would be surprised for obvious reason. We most welcome here because there is less. So between the French community, the Francophone community, and this is sometimes much better defended than the Francophone community than myself, and Kenyan entrepreneurs, there is a lot we can do. And last thing, and then I will let you conclude. What defines an entrepreneur? This is what I like the story of the first failure. For me, is speed, resilience, and then discipline and its economic execution. And the only thing where we might disagree is that in PE, you need to have speed.
You need to exist after 4.
For Scari's music has started, but I will naming them yet. I'm very sure this might be Jen to speak about one initiative which you started and which we started, which is making the bridges between France, Europe, and Africa. So we have started 8 years ago, and you have started also a few years ago, an initiative of funds or family of funds investing in French SMEs, so small companies, but mid-sized companies, turnover between 20 million to 200 million, and making that the growth of this company is generated by the European market and the US market for a few of them, but also by Africa. And we have brought these companies in Africa, and it's a huge success. It's your idea, Nicola, and I would really like to commend you. So we have worked hard to make it live and to make it successful. And it is successful in terms of return, it's successful in terms of impact, and we have shown that this example should be duplicated to an extent that many other institutional investors are coming to do the same. So KfW is starting the same in the VC segment between Germany and Africa, which is good. BII from England is starting the same, and we think that it's a pilot and it can really go at scale. And for this type of activity, it's good to mention that we were able to attract African investors in France, in Europe, and in France in that case, because, and I would like to thank few of them who are in this room, the first time few pension funds have started investing in PE and in the real economy was through this initiative. So we have the pension fund of the Central Bank of Kenya, which came with us and which came again. And we have few other pension funds who have backed us for this initiative. And we can say that African capital is now going to Europe to empower European companies in order to empower Africa. And this is the virtuous circle, which we like. Thank you.